Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. One of the things that energizes us the most is being able to hear the stories of lives that are impacted by Jesus Christ. We would love for you to share your story with us. You can share your story by sending it to stories@VisaliaFirst.com. Or maybe your next step with getting connected to what God is doing here in our ministry is partnering with us financially. You can do that by heading over to VisaliaFirst.com/give and finding the giving option that works best for you. Thanks again so much for tuning in today, and enjoy today's message.
I believe I have a word for you today. I'm going to do a little message entitled Snapped, a breakdown on the way to my breakthrough. You ever feel like you're going to snap? Yeah, we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about that. So once again, thank you for being here. I had to tell you something that happened to me this week before we get started. I'm in the grocery store, and the lady in front of me, she's got a lot of groceries. You ever been behind someone with a lot of groceries? And there's nobody else to go to, and all I have is an apple. And I'm watching this lady just, she had that thing piled up. I think her bill came to $122 or something. Finally, we got the last one. She hands her card to the cashier, and it's declined. So I'm having to go through this. And she handed it to her again, and she said, "No, ma'am, it's second time. It's declined." So being the man that I am, you sort of know what I already did, I guess. We teach generosity around here. And there was a lot of groceries, man. And so I did my civil duty. I helped her put every one of those groceries back on the shelf. I'm here for the people. I really am. I really am. We're talking about being snapped. I was youth pastor years ago, and we had this thing called Bible quiz. We were real good. Matter of fact, we won the national competition from our church. We were back for another round, and we had this one girl on our Bible quiz team. For you that don't know what Bible quiz are, among the Assemblies of God churches, they will have students study a book in the Bible, and they will memorize that book. The real good ones, we had team members that memorized it backwards. I mean, they're good. We had this one young girl, 17 years of age. She was smart. I mean, she not only memorized it, she could answer any question. We just knew that we were a contender this year. They were studying, they were cramming real hard, and one night before the competition, she snapped. Something broke. 17 years of age. I didn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. I was too young to figure these things out, above my pay grade. How is it, Lord, that someone who has poured themselves into studying the Word like that and a righteous girl, doing everything she knows to do right, and all of a sudden, physically, mentally, now she's in a mental institution? How does that happen, Lord? How do you snap? How does a person snap like that? I was listening to an interview on John McCain, a senator from Arizona, the other day, and he was talking about his captivity in Vietnam. You know, John McCain was held, I think, 5 years in captivity, being arrested by the Viet Cong. He was talking about he had been trained for that moment. In his military training, they had trained him how to act when you're held captive, and what you don't do and what you do. And the one thing you don't do is betray your country. At any cost, you don't betray your country. John McCain said, "I did fine for the first year." He said, "All of my energy, strength, and everything." He said, "But in the second year," he said, something happened. He said, "I broke down." They broke me down. He said, and then I said things to our enemy that I have forever, for my entire life, I have regretted saying, but I came to a breaking point and I broke. We're going to read a Bible text this morning of a fella, one of the top guys in the Bible. He had a breaking down point. He snapped. So I want to talk to you today about breaking down on the way to your breakthrough. Mark chapter 14, verse 26. This is from the New Century Version. The Bible said after singing a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. And Jesus told the followers, you will all stumble in your faith. Because it is written in the Scriptures, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. But after I rise from the dead, I will go ahead of you into the Galilee. Peter said, everyone else may stumble in their faith, but I will not. Jesus answered, I'll tell you the truth. Tonight, before the rooster crows twice, you will say 3 times, you don't know me. But Peter insisted, I will never say that I don't know you. I will even die for you. And all the followers said the same thing. We're going to jump over to Luke chapter 22 now. And Jesus has now been arrested, and this is the other side of the night. They arrested Jesus. They led him away, brought him into the house of the high priest. Peter followed far behind them. Most translation says that Peter followed at a distance. After the soldiers started a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat together, Peter sat with them. A servant girl saw Peter sitting there in the firelight, and looking closely at him, she said, this man was also with Jesus. Peter said, this is not true. Woman, I don't know him. A short time later, another person saw Peter and said, you're also one of them. Peter said, man, I'm not one of them. About an hour later, another man insisted, certainly this man was with him because he's from the Galilee. But Peter said, man, I don't know what you're talking about. At once, while Peter was still speaking, a rooster crowed. Then the Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. And Peter remembered what the Lord had said. Before the rooster crows this day, you will say 3 times that you do not know me. And then Peter went outside, cried, painfully cried, wept bitterly because he snapped. He had a breakdown on the way to his breakthrough. I want to talk to you about that today. The breakdown, the backtrack, the breakthrough. It's graduation night in Gethsemane. The Last Supper has occurred. Peter has graduated summa cum laude. Nobody has done in the last 3 years what Peter, he has risen head above the rest of the followers. He boldly stood up that night and said, I passed with flying colors the 3-year Bible class with Jesus. Jesus started throwing out some lines. One of you are going to betray me. Peter said, they may do it. Those jokers, not Pete. The problem is, Peter did not know himself. I think a vast majority of people on the planet, they don't know themselves. Because there's a point of stumbling There's a point of breaking. There's a point when we all stumble in our faith. It is written, all will stumble in their faith. I would love to tell you that no one stumbles in their faith. No one is going to break down. I would love to tell you that true believers never snap. If I were to write a book, how to never have a breaking point, how to never break down, how to never snap, I could sell out of books. Peter basically said, they'll do it, but I will never do it. You ever come to that place where you didn't know yourself? You say, I will never do that. You know, the luxury of being a young person is you have the luxury of saying a lot of things that you would never do because you haven't had that many experiences. You get around some old folk, they don't talk like that. No, they say stuff like, if the Lord wills, I won't do that. If the Lord wills, I won't do that. But everybody has this breaking point. You have a breaking down point, raising kids. How many want to kill your kids before? And would you say that's a breaking down point? With the boss, if that boss says another thing to me, I think I'll just kill him. There's a breaking down point in marriage. I know I said for better, for worse, but boy, there's been more worse than better lately. Not in my marriage. Even the most spiritual people have breaking down points. I would love to tell you, if you'll just pray in the Spirit, you will never break down. But it doesn't happen. I would tell you, read 5 chapters of the Bible a day. You'll never break down, but it doesn't work that way. I would love to just say, if you just pay your tithe, everything will be all right. You'll never hit the breaking down point. But the problem is, everybody, even biblical people, even the generals inside the Bible, they broke down. Elijah in 1 Kings 18, he's calling fire down. This is the showdown of showdowns in the Old Testament. There's 850 prophets against God, and there's one lone prophet, his name is Elijah, and he whipped 800 of them in his church service that day. But the next day he gets up under a juniper tree and he says, Lord, just kill me. I'm no better than any. He broke down one day after his biggest breakthrough. And Job in the Old Testament, you open up Job and boy, he had a good line in the beginning of his book. He said, naked I came from my mother's womb and naked I will return. Blessed be the name of the Lord. But later on he said, cursed be the day that I was born and the breast that gave me suck. Paul, the greatest writer in the New Testament, wrote 2/3 of it. But he came to Asia Minor and he wrote in his book, he said, I broke down in Asia Minor. He said, I'd never seen it that bad. In the Greek, it literally says, they felt the death sentence in their soul. He had a breaking down point. So I want you to understand everybody's going to have a breaking down point in your life. So welcome to church this morning. But let me give you some signs so you can ward it off a little bit. The first sign of if you're on the breaking down course is following God at a distance. The Bible said that Peter followed from a distance. Followed from a distance. You'd be surprised how many people come to church and they're following God at a distance. We got a lot of Secret Service Christians in here. Yeah. Undercover agents, they would call them. They talk a good talk. But the problem is they're going to have a train wreck one of these days. And just talking a good talk's not going to be able to help you win the fight of faith. You got to put something down in your soul. Because they're following at a distance makes you neutral. And when the troubles comes, you can go either way. You can go this way or that way. It doesn't matter because you're sort of following at a distance. Well, how do I know if I'm following at a distance, Pastor? Well, are you still praying like you used to? Not really. How's the Bible? Is the Bible just another app? Is it just like one of the other apps? And you used to not mind the preacher preaching for hours. Now if he goes over 2 minutes, I just thought I'd slip that one in there. Another one, Peter had a sense of invincibility. He had a few successes in his life, and it gave him a sense that I'm invincible. I'm a Superman in this kind of thing. And Peter was no upstart Christian. I mean, Peter walked away from everything, man. When you think of Peter, some of you think of Peter like you think of Andy Griffith and Opie walking down with a fishing cane. No. Peter owned a fishing company. Peter had a seafood packaging company. I mean, this boy, he sold out to follow Jesus. I mean, that's pretty radical right there. So we're not talking about a Johnny-come-lately Christian. He's radical in his faith. He jumped off of a boat one day. He was naked fishing one day, and then he jumped out of a boat, barely got his clothes on, and ran over to see Jesus. Y'all read your Bible. I mean, he was so ticked off at a guy for messing with Jesus while he was praying one night, he cut his ear off. So you're not talking about a guy who is an undercover agent. You're not talking about a secret Christian here. I mean, Peter was one bad motor scooter. But then something began to happen as time went along. He began to deny the very dearest principles in his heart. It's one thing for a policeman to give you a speeding ticket, but how does a policeman give himself a speeding ticket? How does this man of God police himself now? A tragedy that he starts to survive by lying. What is it about us that we can't tell the truth? What is it about? What is that thing in the inside of us? Was the writer of the Proverbs right that the fear of man is a snare? Are we afraid to tell the truth because it's a snare of the devil? What is that? Peter said, I don't know him. You see, Peter was good at focusing on what he could see, but he was unprepared for what he could not see. It's not the battles that we can see. We pretty much can control them. But I'm talking about what you can't see. What's lurking on the outside. Peter didn't know that. Peter fought a storm. He woke Jesus up in the middle of a storm. Nobody else would wake Jesus up. I mean, Peter stood up against those soldiers. He's ready to throw down and fight everybody, but he was not accustomed to the unseen. Well, there's the breakdown. Let's do the backtrack. So you begin to ask yourself questions. What questions should I be asking to make sure I don't break down past? Well, ask yourself this question. How close are you to God? How close? Peter was close to God, but he wandered off into the enemy's camp. He's warming his hands at the fire of God-haters. You got to get this, church. Because you and I do the same thing. We fill ourselves with so much social media, fill ourselves with so much newscast today. We fill ourselves with so much stuff today, and it's a trick of the enemy to neutralize you. If I can just neutralize you. Young person, if he can just dilute you and pollute you, listen to me, on your way up, don't let anybody put their hands on you and dilute you and pollute you. Because there's a neutralizing thing. The enemy is trying to neutralize you. He's got Peter over here warming his hands at the fire, and Peter would have never done what he did, but he stayed there long enough. If you stay there long enough, you'll begin to defy the dearest principles in your life. How well do you know yourself? What's the difference between Peter and Judas? Shouldn't Jesus have said at the Last Supper, 2 of you will deny me? 2. will betray me. Peter thinks. Now, Peter is thinking, maybe I'm the one that he was talking about. He hadn't heard about Judas's hanging yet, so Peter's thinking when he did this betrayal thing, he said, man, you think that was you? I'm the son of perdition? After all, I was hungry for God. Maybe I should have stayed in the fishing business. Maybe I should have never moved to the Central Valley. And now he's got these distractions going on in his mind. So my question is, how well are you dealing with the distractions in your own mind? I don't know. Does any of you have these voices in your head? I'm telling you, I got a bunch of them rolling around in there. And I mean, they fight sometimes. And anybody, am I the only one that has voices speaking in the middle of the night? And here's the trick. If he can't neutralize you, he'll get your mind so distracted that when you're needed the most, you're spiritually unavailable. Jesus is beat to a pulp. After that little exchange in that courtyard that night, Peter wept painfully. He walked away. He never thought, I will never do this. And he walks away. And Jesus has now been beaten to a pulp, and Peter is not there. They took Jesus and they crucified him. They hung him high. They stretched him wide, and they pierced his side, and Peter is not there. They peeled his rigor mortis ridden body off of that cross and popped those nails out. And where's Peter? He's not there. They took his body and they had to put it in a borrowed tomb because they couldn't find. But where's Peter? Peter's not there to negotiate their deal. Where's Peter? He's not there. They wrapped his body in 1-inch linen cloths and they placed it in that borrowed tomb, and Peter's not there. They rolled the stone in front of that tomb, and Peter is not there. What a shame. When your family needs you the most and you got a distraction going on in your brain. That's the enemy. Daddy, when your children need you the most, his tactic is to get you distracted while your kids go to hell. Well, I'm unavailable. No, you're available. Peter was there for everything else. He was first in line. I mean, first one to say this, first one to jump off the boat. Peter was there, but he really wasn't connected in the most crucial time of Jesus' life. He was distracted in his head. How are you dealing with that? How are you working with those voices in your head? Oh, I wish I had time to go down that road to tell you how to deal with the voices in your head. I wrote a book on it. I spent my lifetime fighting Legion. Not really. I'm not demon-possessed. Let me give you the good news. Here's the breakthrough right here. You need to realize if you're a child of God, you've been marked by God, and it ain't rubbing off, baby. Peter's at this fire, and he's just trying to get warm. It's cold out there. He's just trying to get warm. And this young teenage girl speaks up and said, hey, now I know who you are. You got the mark of God on you, boy. Nope. There's something about being with God that doesn't rub off. You could be in the hog pen of life doing whatever you're doing, and people can still look at you and say, I think she's a believer. You could be smoking dope, getting high, talking about the Lord. I did it. Not this week, but I did it before. You can get yourself a little money and you act like you don't need anything, and people could still say, I I think it's your grandmother who prayed for you. It was your granddaddy. It was your mama. It was your daddy that they prayed that mark on you. You got a mark on you, baby. Hear me, parents. You don't have to worry a whole lot because you put a mark on those kids. They may be going out there doing what they're doing, but they are marked of God, and God is going to go get them one of these days. And one day they're going to say, Joseph, load up the wagons and bring the family in. Somebody say, I've been marked by God. You should use that mark against the enemy of your soul. In just a moment, we're going to have communion. And I love communion. Do it every month, 4 times a month, because I got to go to every service. And I don't mind a bit. Give me 5 communion cups. Give me 6. Why? I'm just reminding the enemy of my soul, I'm a marked man of God. When you get out there and the devil's just beating your lights out over something stupid you did, why don't you remind him, wait. I am in covenant with God. I broke bread. His blood has covered my life. Secondly, receive a word from the Lord. Oh, this is worth the whole message right here. Watch this. Peter, whenever could you imagine? I'm sure you can, that Peter has denied the Lord, the rooster crowed, and he is looking eyeball to eyeball to Jesus in that courtyard. Can you imagine that feeling? It hurt him so bad, he ran out and he was painfully weeping. How could I have ever walked away from my covenant with Jesus like that? The last person Jesus saw before one of his disciples, before he died, was Peter. And now it's great getting up morning. It's resurrection morning. And the Bible says that the ladies go to the tomb. And the angel of the Lord said, he's not here. He has risen and he's gone to Galilee like he told them boys. And he said, watch this, don't miss it. The angel says, go tell the disciples and Peter. What'd you say? And Peter. Peter. The guy that denied him 3 times last night. Go tell Peter. I want to talk to him. I got a feeling I'm talking to some of those in this room that need a word from the Lord. God still wants you. God still wants you. Pastor, if you knew, I don't have to know. I just know. He didn't say, tell Thomas. He didn't say, tell Bartholomew we need to talk. No. The last person he saw was Peter, and the first person he calls out by name sort of reminds me of the old hymnal writer who said, while Jesus was on the cross, I was on his mind. As soon as he woke up, where's Peter? Boy, it was a long night last night. That was a dark, demonic-filled night. But where's Peter? You may have stepped out of sin and stepped into this church service today, and you may feel like every demon in your body screaming not to be here, but I'm here to tell you, he's calling your name. You still matter to him. You've not done something so bad that he's not calling you back in. He said, come on, come on. You can't sink so low that God's going to break his end of the covenant. He never breaks his end of the covenant. We may have broken our end of the covenant. We may have walked away on him, but he's never going to walk away on us. Is there anybody in this house that's ever acted like Peter before? You ought to shout, I'm getting a second chance today. I'm getting me a second chance today. I don't know who I'm preaching to this morning. I may be preaching to one person or 10 people, but I come to tell you, God is giving you a second chance today. The devil is a liar. Get past your failure and start showing up again in the things of God. God has a work for you. You just need to have a good getting up morning yourself. He's for you. He's not against you. He loves you with an undying love. Lastly, he's got to work for you. Peter, can y'all still listen when these ushers come up here and pass this communion out? Can y'all do two things at once? Come on down here, ushers. Come on. Jesus told the angel, you tell him, I need to talk to Peter. And Peter, go ahead and pass him out, guys. And Peter, you see, ladies and gentlemen, God uses a lot of people. We got a lot of people this morning that are serving this church. We have hundreds of people in classes right now teaching, and God uses people all the time, and a lot of those people have never had a breakdown in their lives. But if you want to be introduced to next level leadership, take your brokenness, lay it before the Lord. And in that brokenness, because God looked in the middle of Peter's brokenness and he said, come here, boy. Hey, Pete, in a few days there's going to be this thing called Pentecost. And there's going to be like thousands of people out there. I can already see it. He said, but Peter, I got to get off the earth because if I don't get out of here, Holy Spirit can't come do his job now. And Pete, I'd like for you to speak for me. I want you to speak for me on Pentecost, Peter. What did you say? Jesus, did you just ask me to do a work for you after all I betrayed? Are you sure you know what you're doing here? Yeah, Pete, I can really use you now that you've been broken like that, because I broke you in all the right places. See, some of you are looking at your brokenness and you're thinking it's over. You were just broken in the right place. Broken in the right place. And there's somebody waiting for you on the other side of your obedience of getting up and getting back in the fight. Don't you check out now. Don't you hang that spiritually unavailable sign on your door. You get back up and get over yourself and get back to stepping in with the Lord. Amen. I got a letter this week. You could just hear this lady weeping. You could just hear her painfully weeping through this letter. She said, Pastor, I know this lady. She's got a couple $1 million in the bank. I know she's got money. She said, Pastor, she said, I messed up. I really messed up, Pastor. So I'm reading this letter, and she begins to reference a time. She said, I never got over it. And I know what she's talking about. She's talking about an incident that happened in her family this last year. She said, I never got over it. And she said, since I did not get over it, she said, I walked away from God. I couldn't believe that God would hurt me like he hurt me like that. I never thought God acted like that. She said, in the midst of not forgiving God, she said, I got full of pride. And I said, who needs God? She said, I'm in the fight of my life right now, and I have to tell you, would you forgive me? Will God forgive me? He said, I'm believing He is. She said, I'm feeling better now, and I believe that I just need to confess to you that I'm coming back to God. It doesn't take a breaking like that to get our attention. But some of us are hard hearing, aren't we? But now that you've been broken, you go into next level leadership. Amen. If you're here and you don't know Christ, you need to invite Him to be your Lord before you do take the bread. So I'm going to have our whole church pray this prayer together of commitment, consecration. If you want to get right with God, this is how you do it. Lord Jesus, I invite you to be Lord of my life. From this day forward, I want to follow God. Please forgive all my sins. Cleanse me, Lord. Wash me, Lord. Fill me with your Spirit. Tell me what to do. I'm all yours. I love you, Jesus.